Hey everyone, it's WINGSPANTT, the fourth best commentator on YouTube, in-game and EVE Online. I am Chance Ravinne, and this year I'm running for CSM X, well I like to call it X, and I'm being joined here today with Suzy RC Mudstone, who's also running. Suzy, can you introduce yourself?
Hey, I am Suzy RC Mudstone, running for CSM 10. Vote for Suzy.
Vote for Suzy. Now, I don't know if anyone remembers, but Suzy and I used to be a corp together during my exploration days, which is how we know each other. And by the good grace of Bob and his his verdict of his corporation letting me live is part of what got me into all the deep space, spooky space stuff. So I'd like to personally thank you for letting me live while incurring on your territory.
Hey, every now and again, you just gotta let a guy live. It's it's good, man.
The
Like,
mercy
I'm
rule
glad I
is a
did it.
mercy
Yeah,
rule.
every now and again, you get that new guy who's just, mildly charismatic. So you're just kind of like, eh, here's
Or his ship's not worthy enough to try finding.
it's just not worth the effort.
So yeah, I mean, I guess it's interesting because we're both meeting at a point where we're relatively young players, and I guess even now we're relatively young players compared to some of the people who've been playing this game for like a decade, which I guess
Sure.
is definitely a sticking point for some people as
Yeah.
CSM candidates. Like I don't know what you thought about, like why should anyone care about us since we don't know like literally everything about Eve ever.
You've got to have some fresh take on it. I think that's really important, and that's been lacking for a while.
I mean, people will ask me, right, like, okay, you don't know anything about Sav. Well, I personally don't. I know you probably know more than I do.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I've interacted with it
Right, I don't
rather
even.
a bit lately.
It took me a while to realize that Sav wasn't an acronym. Like, it was like Stations Over Vale or something. That
Yeah,
obviously that was a while ago, but I guess like people will say like, okay, so if I don't know about all this super detailed stuff, like how will I, address it on the CSM? And I've kind of asked people back, like, well, how is someone who's played for 6 years or 10 years going to realistically address like what it's like to start Eve today? Because that's something
they're,
I've done,
they're
and
not. And the other side of it is you have the guys that have been doing it for so long, and I feel like it's going to be harder for them to have a more creative or completely off the wall perspective.
mm,
And there's some value to that. There was a thread, that I was reading, and it was, or maybe it's even you saying that, a game is a business. A lot of
mm,
people think it's like, oh, it's art or it's fun or this and that, but for the company and the people that make it, it's a business. So they need to make money, so they can't be completely out of touch with the people they're expecting to, play the game.
yeah,
And
that's true.
if you want to, I mean, you've said this tons of times, and I'm totally in agreement. If you've got, something like Eve and you want it to continue for another 10 years, you can't do that with just the people you've got now.
Now,
Like they're going to burn out or, stop playing, or something new's going to come along.
well, there's even the sense of like if, well, yeah, definitely something new could come along, and I think no one wants to feel like they're the sucker who's been holding on to something. Like if
Sure.
something new comes along and they feel like it's a bright and shiny thing, and the general zeitgeist in the gaming world is like Eve is lame or it's kind of run its course. It's going to be a lot easier for those people to get kind of lured away at a certain point because
Yep.
they'll already be convinced in the back of their minds that that's
Well,
the reality of it.
they've already got that bitter vedness, ground into them. They have no
Mm,
soul anymore.
you could taste the bitter.
You could just taste it.
Mm, it sticks to the roof of your
It's
mouth,
palatable.
in the back of your throat. You could just taste it, jabbing you in the. And I will. Let's not get into that. But
Yeah, yeah. I don't know where you were going with that.
fun places, fun places. Uh, so just to recap. So I think people who watch my channel know in general that from my campaign that the new player experience is important to me. Also, kind
Yeah.
of like the non-player experience and the marketing of Eve, and obviously some of the bridging PvE to PvP content is like kind of what like the main focuses of what I want to do because that's kind of like been my background. So, like, what's just real quick for anyone who's not familiar, what's your background, and then what are like the main things that you're trying to would want to accomplish with CSM?
Um, right now, I mean, I do a lot of like the big coalition PvP stuff, but I originally started, mining like 90, a lot
Ooh,
of people.
ooh.
Yeah, exactly. I started out mining. The thing is that, when you first start, you're terrified of losing your ship. So
Mm,
you need to do something that's really, really risk averse, that's really, really like easy, I guess. And there needs to be a bridge for the newer guys to get some of that experience and exposure to other things. And the current system isn't good at exposing players to other things.
and I think part of that comes because people are used to other MMOs or something. Like they are used to picking some profession or picking some crafting whatever, and they just kind of like they're used to I just level this up infinitely and just keep working at this forever, and this
Yeah,
is what I do in the game.
you pick a class, so to
Yes.
speak. But the thing is that there's so many classes in EVE
Right.
Online. It's really difficult to, you know, not know that maybe I want to run incursions, or maybe I want to be a low sec pirate. You have maybe I want to deliver torpedoes to random dudes in wormholes.
That sounds like something an asshole would do. I don't
An
know.
asshole would do that,
I
but
don't know
a wonderful,
who
wonderful
would do
asshole.
that. I don't know who would do anything like that. But yeah, no, I think yeah, like you're spot on. Like there's no sense that those opportunities exist. Now I've used the word opportunities already, but I feel like that sense of what can you do, because you have all these stories about Eve, whether you've seen it in the gaming news or your friends told you about it, about like the things you can pull off, and then you get in this game and there's this interface with so many buttons, and there's this giant market with all these graphs and giant spreadsheets and stuff.
Ways to do
Yeah,
everything.
yeah, you don't know how to do any of those things, and,
Yeah.
or even what you can do, or you're like, oh, I could create a contract. Like, how would you know a contract is in the game if there were, there's no.
If somebody didn't tell you,
Someone has to tell you. Like the
yeah,
first time,
and walk you through how to do it.
yeah, like I had a blueprint from exploring, because I followed the tutorial about how to explore, and I would explore, and then I would end up with a blueprint. I'm like, I don't know what this is. I don't know what it does. I don't know how to sell it. I don't know
How much is it worth?
is it worth
Yeah.
anything. Like
Yeah,
there's no way to
exactly.
know that, and there's just like it just seems mind-boggling that that's the case.
I mean, part of that is because of the way the game works. Like, you're gonna have to make a friend if you want to
Yes.
like experience more than a very narrow aspect of the game. So you join up with the guy that was nice enough to help you out when you blew up all your risks because some guy suicide ganked you, or
Sure.
some assholes that let you live in a system. Like
Right.
it's like you have to make a friend in order to really get the broad scope of like all these things you can do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. And that's kind of hurt me to some extent when I tried to have friends join Eve. I had a couple people who did start who were my friends,
Yep.
and then they would be like, okay, well, what do I do? And I'm trying to explain a little bit like what they can do. They're like, well, can I just join your corp and do what you do? I'm like, well,
No.
not really. Like first of all, you don't have any money, so you're not going to afford to lose more than like one ship, and you don't have any of the skills to fly the ships that we fly. And like, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but there's just nothing I can do for you. If you join my corp, we're war decked all the time, so you're just
Yep.
going to get killed in high sec. So, yeah, even just finding out what kind of community you can join, and what group of people you should work with, other than the people you stumble upon by random chance.
And even if you look at that, like, there's tons of like very new player friendly organizations, but I feel like they're very narrow as well.
Yeah.
Like they're all like, newbies. They're focused on their nullsec, warfare. Basically, it's just all PvP all the time.
On Brave.
And that's, yeah,
Yeah. Well, that's and that's interesting because like especially obviously on Reddit there's a huge bias, and I love the Eve subreddit, but like you see new players show them like, hey, I'm new, what should I do? And everyone's like, just join Brave, right? So
don't do that.
But-
I don't tell people that.
no, but what I'm saying is that's a very common answer.
Yep.
Like people like join Eve Uni or join Brave, and that's it. And I mean those corps, they're very
They're awesome.
good. Yeah, they're great. But like I almost feel like there should be some kind of like when you start Eve, like if there was like a quiz, or like when you're building your character and you're like, oh well, I want my character to get famous, and they're gonna make money by taking it from people or by finding interesting places, or like something that's more like a lore-ish kind of like thing, but just something that could give someone like a jumping point off of like where you could possibly go, or direct you if things were scaled in some way. I always thought that would be interesting.
I think that's an excellent idea. Like like we have the Eve Vote website, which
Yes.
helps you like tailor your interest and find the candidates that match your interest. So why can't we have something like that for new players when they first start playing Eve? What do you like? What do you not like? Okay, maybe you'll be into exploration. Some people would hate that. Some
Right.
people would be like, okay, well, I really do want to mine rocks, or I'd rather go blow people up. When it comes to the new player thing, I'm a huge proponent for time. Like your trials should be spent in like a separate shard. It should be storyline based, like you follow a bit of a narrative, because let's face it, like the game is awesome because of narrative. Whether it's player narrative or, NPC lore or whatever, it's stories. What makes Eve interesting is stories that people tell, and you have your excitement and your, defeat, and new players need to be exposed to that. So put them on a shard, take them through a story, and then say, hey, now here's the world. You've been introduced to all these different mechanics through a story. Now make your own story.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Did you ever play Guild Wars or Guild Wars 2?
I did not.
Because they did a really good job with that, and even to the point where Guild Wars 1 had probably the most interesting setup, where you're in this like very picturesque medieval town, and you're a low level player, and they're just giving you a very simple quest, and all the there's no PvP in that area, but you're learning about the lore, the land, and all that stuff, and then you're like, oh well, what's gonna happen, and when you do finish your last mission, like there's an invasion from these like barbarian group, and they blow up your whole town and murder everyone, and you get like knocked out, and then like the game like starts, like launches you onto the main shard essentially with like, oh, now you're an adult and everyone you know is dead. And like,
Sure.
and it's supposed to give you an impetus to like go do things in the world, like whether you're gonna start the missions or you're gonna start training up in a certain way. And I always thought that was really interesting because it kind of solved a lot of problems at once. Like it allowed people to have all the mechanics, but kind of like pick them up without having to worry about people like messing with them essentially. And also introduce you to the lore, because then you don't have to care about it in the long run, but you should at least know what the hell's going on.
Some of it, like at least have an idea of the story as to how all this came to be.
Right. Because I've had people like in my corp be like, we're talking about the drifters, and they're like, what is a Jave? I'm like, a Jove? They're like, oh yeah, what is that? Like, oh god, like, but what's funny is like I shouldn't even really know that, but
yeah,
whatever,
yeah. They're putting effort into the NPE, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it needs a story. It needs a narrative to give it purpose and to give it, reason for action.
Sure.
Because it's asking for a whole lot of self-motivation to get into the game.
One thing that is interesting about having this story that I thought might work, I don't know if it would work, but I also found interesting in this game that there's not really like any cooperative or competitive. Like the PvE isn't very cooperative in any way. Like there's not a lot of ways that you can stumble upon a PvE experience with other players, like because so many things are locked away in like dead space and stuff. Like I know like you go to anomalies, but while you're doing like your missions, if you're not inviting people, like unless they're coming to like flip your cans or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like
that's incursions.
Yes, incursions, but like incursions are pretty like high level. You know what I'm saying? Like you as a completely new player aren't just gonna like stumble into incursion and just like help blow things up. I think not having that kind of dynamic aspect kind of makes it harder for newbies to just stumble upon experiences, and instead they kind of, while it's cool that they have to decide their direction, it's almost like if you aren't given any way to do it other than just, you okay?
Yeah, sorry. Just
Sorry.
Choking on my own mouth.
I've done that before. There's worse things to choke on.
Has. A few. I think you were talking about one of those earlier.
Yeah. All right. So what do you think? So let's just go. What do you think about the new opportunities thing for the new player experience that CCP has put together?
It's better. I don't know if that's saying a lot. because
Right.
the old was terrible. I mean, it's really bad. I think it's better. It's a little bit more handholdy. It's a little bit more compresses some of the information into something a lot more easy to look at.
Mm-hmm.
And it introduces the concepts and mechanics, but again, it's not interesting. It's it's still reading text. It's still just doing what the box in front of you tells you to do for no reason at all.
Right. There's no motivation. I know they were saying
Exactly.
that there's no rewards right now, and they're thinking about having rewards, but it's like,
Yeah, but
okay, it says here like learn how to mine. Like, why should I mine? What does mining do? What I have no
what's
personal
the
motivation. Right? What's the point?
how does this help me, or how does this affect someone else?
Right. So I agree. I do like what the system that they built in terms of like how it can scale, and it seems like it'd be very easy for them to add new things or take things out, or they can kind
Sure.
of like rotate and do a lot of testing and see what people respond to. But it does seem like if there's any way that they could, like if they forced you to do certain activities where, let's say, at the end of one of the opportunities, you had to take out some Serpentis battleship or some shit like that, right? And then,
Okay.
one of the later opportunities, at the very end, the Serpentis guy comes back and blows you up. And I understand it doesn't really work that way, but it's more like a dynamic story thing. But
It's
I don't
got
know,
to be a story.
something.
Like,
You
you have to you have to have a reason for doing it. I said it, like you're asking for a ton of self motivation to get through that first 12 hours of gameplay.
Maybe what they could do is, right, like, so we see like Valkyries being tied in, Legions being tied in, but maybe what CCP could get into is like electronic cigarettes, right? So that you could CCP cigs, right, and then they're tied into the game world, so that whenever you finish an opportunity, you would get some nicotine, and you would slowly just
To slowly build the addiction that we all have.
yeah, it worked for Magic the Gathering. People always talk about that it's printed with addictive ink, so that's the reason why people can't stop playing the game. So, all right, so we were one of the things that we were saying that we were gonna talk about is, I guess, like generally like where does content come from, or like what are some like means for generating content. I guess in some ways, this is like a very broad like new player experience. PvE-ish kind of thing, but you think there's any other like opportunities for creating content?
Keep in mind, my perspective is mostly nullsec. Your
Mhm.
perspective is a lot different than mine. But bottom line, like the players make the content, okay? But it can't have this huge barrier to entry to make content.
Mhm.
So they've expanded space with the jump changes. Okay, so that expands space for capital ships. That's all kind of good for, smaller subcap content. But now you need to give subcaps a means of getting to where people want to kill each other. That needs work. I'd like to see the player stargates like interconnect the whole thing through Jove space. I think that'd be awesome. You could
Ooh, like
show up,
backdoor.
show up in your enemy's back door and just, ravage. Um,
I feel like there's some like metaphor here that I'm missing.
no. I mean,
Well, in some ways, I feel like we're taking baby steps in that direction. Like, I don't know if it's intentional or not, right? With Thera interconnecting everywhere, and the work of Eve Scout, and further, it's kind of like mapping all that stuff so that, I want to get from here to here. I want to get from Vale, all the way down to Wildlands right now. Like, you can see like, maybe there's a way through Thera. Maybe there's some other way through that, but in some ways that's just one system. It's not like a built-in
before
thing.
Before the jump changes, I didn't like wormholes.
Mm-hmm.
I had a bad experience in a wormhole. It scared the crap out of me. I didn't want to do it again.
Who hasn't?
I mean, honestly, like my first time in a wormhole, I was hunted and I didn't know what I was doing, and I somehow made it out alive. But it was terrifying. It wasn't a pleasant experience. I didn't want to go back. Now, since those jump changes, I'm always paying attention to wormholes.
Yeah.
I mean, like, we have tons of guys scanning wormholes and trying to find links to other places and, where we can go. And now I'm like, sweet, a wormhole, I can get to where I want to fight. I can go
Sure.
shoot stuff.
Sure.
So we need to make that a little easier.
So do you think that part of the allure of that, I guess in some ways, is that the wormholes allow, like basically what you're saying, they allow these shortcuts and they allow like interesting opportunities, but at the same time they're random, right? So
Yeah.
they are not set up in a way that can be easily exploited, essentially. Like, yes, people could roll the wormholes and try to get new ones, but in a way, the fact that they're so random means that you can't just like you can't sit here with a spreadsheet and calculate the optimal way to get from here to here forever is this, so we're going to build our process here and we're going to stage fleets here and we're going to do this. Like, it is more rewarding to people who are, have the, I don't know, the experience mapping and the, being on it to look for them to pop up and try to figure out what opportunities they can make happen.
Sure, but now if you've got these links, like, say I want to end up in, from Vale, I want to end up in Fountain, okay?
Mm-hmm.
If you've got these static links, like player-built Stargates that can go from Vale to Fountain, that's a two-way street. So I can go down there and like, mess around, but the other guy can come up to my house and mess around too. So it stimulates some conflict around those points.
And I think what would be interesting is, I guess when people talk about player-built Stargates in the future, but even the idea of being able to also destroy those links, to
Exactly.
essentially, I guess just like real bridges, in having applications for supply chains and, whatever, reinforcements and, do you leave this up after you've taken over the area because it's helpful to you? Do you burn it down out of spite? Do you burn it down, for strategic reasons?
Either way, it can cause some strife. It can cause some conflict. Because they're a strategic asset as well as a vulnerability, or it's more dynamic. It allows a lot more to go on. And if they don't support capitals, then that maintains the capitals as a defensive asset, which is what's basically happened now.
Sure. So let me ask you. All right. So maybe that will cause some conflict, right? Do you think that we're gonna go there? Do you think that cloaky campers create
Oh
conflict,
boy.
or not? Because I know that's a big. I've seen that in a lot of CSM threads.
You and I are going to be like polar opposites on this one, which I'm okay with. I look at it this way, okay? Like, every aspect of the game should be playing the game. Like,
Okay.
you shouldn't be able to just kind of like, or like even high-sec mining, like, you put your miner in the belt, you tank it properly, and you go to the store while it finishes, whatever it's doing. I
So
don't
what you're saying
necessarily.
is you've never flown an AFK Ishtar.
Yeah, but I'm sitting right there because I don't want to lose my little AFK Ishtar, or, I'm always doing something with whatever I'm doing.
Of
I mean,
course.
I don't do the whole like set up an AFK tar, and honestly, I haven't even done that in months. You should be actively playing the game. Like, an AFK Ishtar isn't invincible.
Right.
Anybody can come in and kill it, and then hey, they got some content off of you because you weren't actively playing the game. But with camping, cloaky camping, you show up, you engage your cloak in a safe spot, and you can go away for the entire day. And the residents have to live with, well, is this guy there? Is he not there? Is he going to drop a fleet of Black Ops on me? You have no idea.
Well, all right, so that's true, right? And this is, I guess, since I'm usually that person, I guess what I would wonder is, especially now that spent so much time in wormhole space. Do you think that it's just the paranoia that's the problem? Is there an actual problem, or is it the fact that someone's there makes it feel like there's a problem? Because if you spend like a lot of time in like with no local and wormhole space, like you have no clue. There's one person here. There's 50 people here, and you kind of just have to eventually operate under the assumption that there's people ready to gank you every second. Like that's like there's
Okay.
always a cloaky Proteus is like that saying, right? There's the only
He's
the only
he's
thing
5K
between
off of you right now.
the only thing between you and a cloaky Proteus is another cloaky Proteus. And then somewhere just past the 50th cloaky Proteus is my bomber. But
Okay. I'd like to see it be more active. I mean, I don't imagine that, you go log in and watch people, or log in and go to the store, or, I don't know, do you?
No, no, I don't.
You're warping around. You're trying to see where people are. You're trying to see what's going on. You're actively engaging in EVE Online.
But do you actually? But see, that's the thing. Is, do you actually know that the people who are? You don't actually know if the people are doing that or not. I guess that's the issue, right? Like, maybe they're at the store. Maybe they're warping between your pastas and setting up tacticals and stuff.
When a certain unnamed entity basically
Okay.
cloaky camped an entire region, there's no way that they were sitting there doing things with all of those characters.
Yeah, but they're playing the meta, you know, like they're not playing the game, but maybe they have, you know, it takes a really long time to set up your tier collectors, you know, because you got to get them aligned right under your monitor with like you got to get the tap like right in the screen and like make sure it flows in at the right angle. It's really it's really an art more than a science.
I'm not saying make I'm not saying make cloaky camping impossible, but I'm saying make it something active. Like
Sure.
it
So
it's,
what like what in your view like what would be like a good direction for that?
I like the idea of like a cloak break module or something like, you know, on a all right, the if you look at the T2 recon cruisers, they've needed some love for a while. They got a little bit, but I'd like to see like the ability to use a module that would say, you know, either break the cloak or, you know, disrupt something. That if the person in that cloaked ship isn't moving or, you know, engage or doesn't do something, then they become uncloaked.
Right. And then if they're
Like,
truly AFK, they'll get combat probed.
they're going to get uncloaked, they're going to get combat probed, and they're going to get blown up.
Right.
You know, so the hunter becomes hunted. Versus, you know, you've got to bait them out. You don't know how much they're going to bring to, you know, kill you. It's, you know.
What if we just like go in a nullsec though and just like remove local? It just local's gone. Then the problem is solved.
I don't live in
right?
a wormhole. I don't live in a wormhole. I chose not to live in a wormhole. That's a wormhole thing. You
But
guys
maybe
love that.
for immersion and new player experience, we got the drifters come and blow up the comms, you know, relays, and then there's no local, you know, so then there'll be a reason for it.
That'd be interesting. I like that. Like maybe the drifters start screwing up stuff, and you got to either fight off the drifters or accept no local. I don't know, man. Like make things happen. You know?
I love that just the term drifters too. Like I just in my head,
It's
I just
so
keep
great.
thinking like Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, and I'm just imagining like those drifter battleships, like someone pulling like their emergency brake and just like getting sideways and like coming in,
Just power sliding around your ship.
Right, exactly.
They don't orbit you. They actively power slide around.
Yeah, their prop mod is NOS. Like that's how it works. That's how it works.
Excellent. I mean, I've killed the drifters. I've killed.
Oh,
yeah.
very brave.
Me and a friend, we killed one on the first day.
Nice.
No kills to show for it, but.
No kills.
It's all right. But the drifters are awesome. It's a threat. They're clearly very dangerous, and like if you shoot at them, they get really angry.
Yes.
And they're not afraid to like, you know, bring out the big guns. So.
I'm really excited to see where they go with that.
Oh yeah,
and I think obviously there's all kinds of crazy rumors they're gonna fix Sov with the drifters, or you know the drifters are here to take out the botters, or the drifters are gonna bet pink slips on their ships against you for quarter-mile times. Like I don't know.
Have a drift off, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
It's served.
That's why they added manual piloting to the game.
Exactly.
It's all coming together. I see it now. I was wondering, like, there's left, right, up, down, and then there's E-brake. You know, like, I saw that in the Vine, so.
Yeah, and then you activate your micro warp drive again, and then you can kind of power slide it around.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
Excellent. I think you and I, should we be elected, that's
number
our
one.
number one priority is engage drifting in space.
All right, so drifting away from that topic, I guess.
Nice segue.
Yeah, nice segue. So smooth. This is why I'm the big F-list celebrity.
Yeah.
I used to say to people like, oh, if they said like, oh, you make YouTube videos, I'm like, I'm a Z-list celebrity, but I was trying to make like an actual like list in my head of like what would the different lists be. I'm like, Pretty sure I'd be like a G or an H, like if I had to come up with it. But
I don't think I get it. I don't get a letter.
hey, you came up with CCP mug. All right, you
I
invented
did.
the mug.
You know,
The
nobody
little known
believes
Eve
me on
lore
that.
fact. I seen it. I saw the stream. I seen it happen. You're the person. So just for
Nobody
for the
believes
fucking
that.
record,
Let the record show. You're right. Let's set this straight.
let's set this shit straight on the only Wingspan podcast ever. That this is it. There you go. There you go. Mudstone invented the mug. We should call it Mugstone. Okay?
Mugstone.
Yes,
Oh, it's perfect.
that's what we're going with.
All right.
The-
Back to
so
sanity.
back to sanity. So I was going to ask, is there anything, now that we've both done some interviews and filled out all these forms and answered people who hate us on the forums, like, is there anything that you think is misunderstood about your campaign or your positions or anything that people should know? Like, what's the legit, real Mudstone deal?
Whoa. The serious.
Very
space
serious.
Mudstone deal. I think that my let's call it interest in balancing, I think that's been misconstrued as like I want to see all the ships the same, and I don't think that's the case. I just think that we need more variety, and it shouldn't be Ishtar's Tengus online.
Sure.
It should be like Ishtar's and Tengus and maybe something for Mimitar, lol, Mimitar lol. I don't know. It's just balance. Okay, not in the sense that every ship is capable of every engagement, but every ship should have a use, and there's a lot of ships that just don't. You don't see a lot of the spaceships that are really cool. You just don't see them.
What do you think is the most useless ship in Eve?
The Nestor. I mean, that's not up for debate. This is something that's widely been discussed. That thing, the bonuses just don't make sense.
It's the best ship for drawing hate in local.
Is it?
When you show up to an exploration site and you just like bump someone's probe with your Nestor, like, out of the way, pleb. Like, I need the 1.2 million ISK in this can.
That's excellent. I know you put together like that. It is. Oh, maybe I'm wrong, because that is the best new player exploration.
That's new player exploration ship. Fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. You're right. You're trying to say like every ship should be good at something, and whether or not that something gets seen a lot, I guess, is ultimately done down to players and what their interests are. But like,
sure,
you shouldn't have a ship that's like, oh, this ship is clearly outclassed by this other ship. Why does the first ship exist, kind of thing? Or
there shouldn't be ships that just aren't used.
Right.
Like every ship should have a use, and there's a lot of them out there you just don't see people flying around, and it's because they're pretty much worthless. Like, they're not good enough at anything. What about you? What's your misconstrued campaign?
I guess the question I get asked the most in threads is like, what do I think? Like, I've talked about trying to get more content creators and YouTubers and streamers involved in Eve. And they're like, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to give them characters? Are you going to get, like, everyone keeps asking me, like, how many ships?
HX, duh.
How many ships? Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. Like, I don't even understand why this is a question. People are like, how many ships are you going to give them? How many characters are you going to give them? Like, no, we'd probably just give them money, like what every other company that does any kind of video game PR does on Earth. Now, it wouldn't be CCP directly doing that. They would hire some kind of PR firm, or some people who have competency in scouting out and figuring out this kind of thing, and I'm sure there's other ways you can, if you wanted to attract a lot of low-level players, for instance, like people who are essentially like, if I'm a G tier YouTuber, if there's someone who's like an L or K tier YouTuber,
Right.
if you just offer those people like, hey, we're gonna give you a free collector's edition box plus like 11-month subscription, right? In exchange for you make a video every month or so, or whatever, they would do it,
Sure.
and they wouldn't be gaining necessarily any in-game advantage or anything other. They would have the redeemable items, I guess, but it's not any more of an advantage than anyone who buys like those exploration starter kits, or who just bought the collector's edition themselves.
I mean, even simplify it. Hey, if you put out a video a month, or 2 videos a month, we'll toss you a Plex. or
Right.
twoplex, or like there's a way to make that work.
Yeah, and that's not something. And if you really think that some random person who's never played this game before is going to be the next Matani in 2 months because he got a free Plex, like
Hey,
I don't know what to
it
tell
could
you.
happen.
It could happen, and you know what? But let me say this: it could happen, and if it did happen, and that person was a YouTuber or a streamer, it would not only happen, but it would be captured on video forever and become one of the most epic things that ever happened in Eve's history.
It would be a
So.
nice story.
Yeah, so I think that's part of what why these people need to be incentivized, and obviously, like as one of those people, one of them. I the story aspect is interesting because there's so much of like the gaming video space that's just like kill streak, kill streak, kill streak. Like
Yeah.
there's only so much that you can watch, and like having people have their like let's plays and the story and the narrative, and obviously Eve lends itself very well to. I mean, look how many people stream and make videos of Minecraft, and Minecraft is a lot like Eve in the sense that it's just this broad place where you can do
Yeah.
anything, and there's no real story other than the one you're making.
People should be able to tell their stories.
Yes.
Like, it should be really easy, because I feel like the game is a story. It's like, a parallel life, or whatever you want to call it, like where people are, they're doing things, they're, having fun in this world, leading this, narrative along. They should be able to tell that if it's interesting.
Right.
You
Now, I
know,
will say, though, that a lot of people have some opportunity to tell their narrative, and instead they fill their bios with pictures of dicks. So,
that is quite a common occurrence.
yeah. Or, like, I just learned what, like, the Sancha resist profile is for the 5 billionth time. Like,
Ugh.
really glad I
You have
clicked
nothing
this
more interesting to say than,
Something.
link the wiki article.
Just
Like,
link
that's
the,
just
yeah,
more
just
productive.
go on. It's fine. I get it. I get why people do that. But
You touched on something about, encouraging a more accurate and effective wiki.
Mm. Yeah, to me, I mean that's, and again, like I said, I came from playing Guild Wars and some other games that had very active wikis, and it's not like these games wouldn't have opportunities for trolling or people profiting in some way from changing information.
Sure.
But it just seems like there just needs to put some more effort into it. Like the official Eve wiki is kind of sad when you compare it to like
Yeah.
the Eve University wiki, and obviously Eve University wiki doesn't do everything either. But it just seems like there's no reason why there can't be more tie-ins. And you know what? I even see all these Eve is now CCP's putting out their Flight Academy videos, right?
Yeah.
And that's great, but other than the fact that I'm currently subscribed to CCP, like how are people supposed to discover these videos or learn anything from them? Like, if
How
there
are they
was
supposed to know from the game that those
these videos
videos exist?
right?
And you
Like,
can't play them in the in-game browser.
No,
So,
right. You can't play them in the in-game, and that needs to be addressed too. Like, there's even parts like the Eve forum, like certain things you can't open from the in-game browser correctly. But yeah, I just think those videos are going to go to waste. Like if they had, if Aura was like, "Hey, it looks like you don't know how to undock, dumbass. Would you like to watch a video
Yeah.
about it?"
here's how to undock.
Right. It looks like you've been bumping against the same asteroid for an hour without any clue how to lock it. Idiot,
Yeah,
like
you've been spinning your shit for 4 days.
Right.
Like there's something more interesting to do. How about this?
right. You've been on the character creator screen for 3.5 hours staring at the ass. Like, is there anything else you'd like to learn about this screen? And you could click it, and then it would show you the video. So I mean, those videos are really interesting, but the discovery's not there.
No, there isn't. And even if like hovering over a thing, or like for the new players you could disable or enable this, but like okay, like you hover over something in your overview, and it's like, all right, I'm looking. I know right now that this little symbol means it's a gate.
Right.
Okay, so if I hover over it, it pops up and it says Stargate. Well, I may not necessarily know that I need to warp to that Stargate
Yes,
and then jump through that Stargate.
Right.
So, like maybe, a tooltip, or I don't like tooltips, but like maybe a link to a wiki article or a little blurb that says, this is how you interact with this thing.
Right. Yeah, because even when you do like a show info on a Stargate, it doesn't actually provide any information
No.
at all. It literally just says its mass and like that's it. Like it's like I would like
It
to
is
know
a
about the system it goes to, what it does, like when under what conditions can I and can't I jump through the Stargate, because that's
yeah.
something new players don't understand,
High
and
sec and low sec like aggro
right. Like there's
is
no
just
reason that
insane.
that
Like,
shouldn't be in the description of Stargate. It just seems like, and I'm sure that this is something that they could put together volunteers or put together something, to get those written, because maybe they don't have 300 million writers on staff to do that.
well, that's
Um,
fine. I
right.
mean, there's a ton of people out there are incredibly dedicated to this game and that are willing to do just about anything to make it better.
Yes.
There's people out there that are willing to just throw their own time
Right.
into it. And it's not for making it better for themselves, it's to make it better for everybody.
Right, because they've been there. They've seen, like, oh, well, I had this frustration, or I was looking for this opportunity, or I was having trouble making ISK, and now I'm going to help people figure this out. And yeah, they're trying to pay it forward, essentially.
Yeah, it's like I want to have more things to shoot at. This is
Right.
my motivation. I mean, I want to have more things to blow up so that we can, keep that tier collector running. But without more people in the world, in the universe, then we're not going to have that. So,
Right. And what I would love too is just seeing way more players in the game or active at any given time. That would also not solve a lot of problems, but it would create impetus for a lot of things. So a lot of change, right? So people, if you have this huge influx of players and now they're taking up all the space in high sec and they're mining all the stuff and they're running all the low level exploration sites, that's going to put all the people who have been established a bit, that's going to force them out to low sec and null sec to do that stuff,
or they're going to have to do something
Right,
else.
or they're going to have to start some merc group and start killing those people. They're going to have to do something, to react. And
More people, more ideas, more stuff. Like, it's just better.
yes, absolutely. Not a lot of like teen. I wouldn't like to see a huge influx of like 12-year-olds. That would be bad.
Oh,
I think that would be bad. So anything
yeah.
that's like the game's not downloadable, free to play off Xbox Live, I think that would be bad.
That would be bad. That would be very, very, very bad. What about all right, you run a corporation. There's something I wanted to ask you.
Wait,
Is
I
like,
do?
allegedly.
Allegedly.
um, how do you feel about like the corp management side of it?
It's very annoying.
Yeah.
Definitely feel like I'm fighting it a lot of the times. Even like something that, okay, they just added that when you reject people, you can put a note.
Send them
Like,
an email.
do you know, like that? If I had that like a month ago, I would have been like a week younger. Like the amount of time I had to spend like emailing people like, hey, your API credentials you were missing some characters off it, or blah blah blah. Like
Uh-huh.
there's so much that needs to get fixed there.
Yeah.
And it sucks because, obviously making it easier, or not even easier, but just less annoying to run a corp will inspire more people to run corps and to be recruiting people and to make
And
more
to
communities in the
create
game.
little splinters and
Exactly.
activities, and
Yeah.
maybe you'll get some competition in your torpedo delivery
We have,
racket.
that we actually have some copycat corp startup. We saw there was a New Eden Delivery Services startup, and we blew them up. But we had to shut that shit down. No, they're good. They're good people.
You got to
They're good
keep your
people.
monopoly on the market.
That's exactly it. And then maybe it's time to franchise. That's.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah.
Start an alliance and then sublet your activities.
Yes. Then I don't know. Then we'll run out of people to shoot if we do that too much. But we'll see. But yeah, no, I do feel that the corp stuff is important, and
Sure.
and obviously even for me, I don't even have the biggest problems compared to people running alliances, and the lack of alliance, even simple things, alliance bookmarks, all the fiasco with alliance logos, just general like tools that are available are very
Sure.
difficult, and I know it's easy for CCP to kind of like lean back and let everyone use the third-party tools to solve everything, but it's just it doesn't feel like encouraging. It doesn't feel like this is something the game wants me to do.
No. And I mean, I have interacted with corporals quite a bit, and nothing's where you want it,
No.
and then the things that are like kind of where you want it aren't necessarily 100% what you're trying to do. It's just really convoluted, confusing. don't wish to do that again.
Legacy code, legacy
Eh,
code. But
you can only sit on that for so long. If you want the game to go on for another 10 years, like
right.
some of that stuff's going to have to get addressed.
Right, and you know what? If you can't fix it, at least do something like the CEO of every corp gets like, a free Plex every month from CCP just as a thank you. So, no, that's that's not a good
And 4 million
balance.
new corps just
Like,
came into being.
shh, shh.
Yeah, it'll be a secret
Don't bring your
NDA.
reality into here. Don't bring your reality into here. So, is there anything else that you want anyone who's listening / watching to know about yourself or about your CSM campaign, just overall, to the megaphone of the people?
Well, one thing we didn't discuss that I think we should is, before we do that, if I may,
Hmm.
uh, we haven't really discussed like intentions and like what we feel like the CSM is and what we feel like we can actually bring to the table, or what do you feel like realistically you can accomplish on the CSM?
Well, let me just step back a little bit, like kind of what you were talking about right before you asked that is, I was looking at some of the interviews, CCP Lilu. I know that they're going to be rewriting the white paper for
Yep.
the CSM, and I just get the impression from everything they're saying is that, they've kind of changed the CSM in some ways over the last couple of years where they're getting rid of like kind of the teeters of the CSM. They want everyone to be like on equal footing, and
Hmm.
now it seems to me that the direction they want to take is they kind of expect people on the CSM to have specific competencies or specialties,
Hmm.
and they want to engage those people more in specific teams. And I guess what I want to bring in, because again, like I said in my own thread and stuff, like I want to bring my marketing and branding expertise into this. I want to be able to give any input into you know what the direction for reaching out to the community is, to new players, not even new players but people who don't play Eve, have like a reality check on that. Like if they have if they're planning to have a program, like we want to get more streamers, we want to get more YouTubers, even like looking at something they're doing, they're like, this is Eve contest to make videos, like, well, there's certainly things about that video contest that irked me as a YouTube person, that made it
Okay.
like, okay, well, they're saying you can and can't do this. Well, do they understand that people who are trying to put music into their videos, if they have licensing or if they have rights management or things like that, like their rules are making it very difficult to understand what they want. So I think even something as simple as that would make it a lot easier for them to get, entries. And that's just a very simple example, and I don't know, obviously, from not being in the CSM, what their plan is for trying to solicit more stuff from the community, but I do feel like they're trying to move in that direction. And I think having a check from someone who's on that side of things would be very useful.
That would absolutely say that you're the man for that, just based on what I know about you. Um,
Thanks.
I was
What about
also
you? What about your side?
hold on. I did a little bit of homework
Oh,
here
oh,
that I found interesting.
fuck.
I am
Oh, so that's your
comparing.
van that's outside my house?
No, 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 no. Well, not today. Um, I was comparing the number of subscribers and views on the Eve Online channel versus the Wingspan TT channel,
Uh-oh.
and
And?
I mean, you're like right behind it, dude.
Oh, man.
I mean, you're catching on to them.
Uh-oh. So
So
what are
you
you
might.
saying?
I'm saying you might know a thing or two about getting people to click your stuff.
Yes, I know, and that's funny because no, and this goes back into like my professional experience too, where I'll be working with a client and they'll want to produce videos for some promotional thing that they have some sale going on or they're whatever, and I'm trying to explain to them, like, listen, this is how you need to do things on YouTube. This is how you need to title your videos, or they're not going to get seen. This is how people view YouTube videos. You can't waste the first 30 seconds with this bullshit.
No.
Like, no, you need to get into and like just trying to get that across to people, because I think if you haven't, I think I have something like 700, 800 videos now. Like, I have like 800 videos, and trust me, a lot of them have like basically no views. And I've spent a lot of time,
Honing
talking
that.
and learning from it, and talking to other content creators and stuff, trying to get ideas.
Sure.
So there's a lot out there that I think is not obvious, and I think that if we want to reach people, both the people who make content when I say make content, I mean out of game content, but
Mm-hmm.
and the people who want to watch it, then I think that it's not obvious and it needs fine tuning, to succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, for me, I feel like my perception of the CSM is this: it's that it's a representation. So, players have to feel like, all right, I've got a concern, and this is something I don't like, and I think it would be better for the game if it were like this. People need to have someone that they can go to that can perhaps say, yeah, I can get on board with that, and then scream really loud about it. Not necessarily through forum, spam and stuff like that. I'm not saying that, but like if you have this asset, you have this link directly to the developers, you can take those little voices, those people that are like, I don't know who to tell, or nobody's paying attention to me. And you can go to somebody on the CSM and say, hey, I have this idea, or I noticed this. And that person can say, you know what, hey, that's good. Let's, I'll push that up. It's got to be a representative thing. So, yeah, you have your expertise and you have your people that are going to be more relatable to you and what you do. But it's got to be you've got to be able to talk to people. So I would intend to just talk to me, I would
Sure.
talk to anyone,
Your
converse
door's always
with it.
open.
Exactly, and it's got to be approachable. And on the other side of it, those people need to know that you're actually doing something.
Yes.
So I need to be able to say, hey, this is what we talked about, and we did some stuff, and not just twice a year.
Right.
I
Especially
need
that doesn't even really make sense in a new kind of, pace of
Yeah,
things
with
in Eve.
I've mentioned this. It's like, you have this new release structure that's really fast, and then you have the CSM minutes come out twice a year.
Right.
The CSM needs to be releasing, maybe a monthly thing like, hey, so-and-so talked about this, and so-and-so talked about this, and, this is where it went or didn't go or hasn't gone in.
Right. And there's 14 people. There's no reason either that you can't have all right, well, every month we're going to pick 3 people to do their monthly, something
There you
like
go.
that. There's no
Hey.
reason that you can't have a cycling. And that will, and then you're not forcing everyone to weigh in on stuff that may or may not be their expertise.
Exactly.
But you also show that there's, changes happening, that people are engaged, and it gives also those people an opportunity to, the people on the CSM essentially, to say, hey, community, here's what I'm doing. Let me get a reality check back from you guys to see if there's some other direction that we need to go, or
Sure.
at the very least that there's a mirror held up, because obviously there's concern about that.
There's concern about the accountability and that there's dead weight on it and stuff like that, that people on CSM aren't doing anything, or that the CSM itself is useless. Like, there's a lot of that undertone going on. So a good, easy way, in my opinion, to solve that is just, put up some update on what's going on, what's been discussed. We talked 3 times this week. We talked 18 times this week. Give people a little bit of, accountability for the people on the CSM, as well as, a little bit of, hey, we tried for you,
Yeah, that's true. And I think also just the there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff too, where it isn't literally just like the high level, minutes of the summit, that a lot of people did hard work that doesn't show in some public way, and if there's some kind of forced, because there's some people that you would just not know are on the CSM, but then if you actually if you listen to devs, or if you actually just happen to know them, you would know. But otherwise, there's no way for the general public to know.
Absolutely. I mean, and then that doesn't necessarily have to the NDA is too restrictive. It doesn't have to be that. It's just, hey, we talked about this general aspect, or, this nuanced aspect. The conversation took place.
And there should be accountability too. I want to know, when Zenuria is on CSM, how many beers does Zenuria have every minute of the day while he was in Iceland? That's what I want to know.
Yeah,
I want to know what kind of beer. It's an important question. It's important. And I want people to exactly list it, because if they say they're going to drink a certain thing ahead of time, then they get there and they drink something else, then I'm just whatever. I hope he gets elected. I want to shake that man's hand.
I don't.
I want to shake his hand. Well, let him wash his hands and then you can shake it. All right? There
I
you
would
go.
have to witness the washing.
There you go. Problem solved. Problem solved. All right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps things up. I think, if anyone is, hopefully, if anyone's interested in either of our campaigns, I'm going to have links to our official CSM threads and interviews and stuff like that in the video description. Mudstone, I'd like to thank you very much for coming on this pseudo video audio journey with me today.
This journey that we've got on, this epic journey.
Yes, and hopefully we can go here and drift on to victory into the CSM elections.
Great. Thanks for having me, man.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Bye.